Hey everyone, Austin Hamoka here, and today I want to talk to you about controlling expenses, making money work for you, and increasing one's ability to earn. Now, the book that we just got done reading is called The Richest Man in Babylon, and if you haven't read that book, it is absolutely an incredible one. It's one that I recently read, and it's probably one that I'm going to be reading maybe once per year or once every other year, something along those lines. Basically, the subtitle of the book is Learn the Secrets of Wealth Creation and Financial Management. So it's really kind of a book about creating wealth and then managing one's finances. And the things that are taught in here are very, I guess you could say, basic, like they're not very complex in nature, which is really good news for all of us because they're things that all of us can be doing on a regular basis in order to become successful. This book is actually not a true story, but it's really engaging and it's really interesting because it's a compilation of these old ancient parables, and the way that they're said throughout the book and demonstrated really kind of keeps you interested as you're going through and reading it. So if you're the type of person that gets kind of bored when you're reading books, this would be a great one for you because it's not boring in any sense because it's telling a story the entire time, which is really interesting in and of itself. But basically, they put all these parables together to teach the lessons of wealth creation and financial management, and it's structured in a way for how ordinary people can create an extraordinary income. And so there's kind of three things that we're talking about within this book today. These were kind of the three main takeaways that I wanted to share with you. And so the first one being controlling expenses. And the first tip in this category and in this reading is pretty complicated. Just kidding, it's not. Spend less than you earn. And that can be easier said than done because right now, I don't know where you're watching from, but where I am in America, things are pretty expensive, right? And it seems like you have to make a lot of money and have a lot of money coming in just to kind of live a basic and simple life, right? But getting into a habit in any way that you can and spending less than you earn is going to be a crucial step in this equation. And kind of with that being set aside, where cost of living can be kind of high right now, we'll set that aside temporarily. But one thing we need to be doing, and is illustrated in the book, is distinguish needs from wants. Because it's really easy to be able to buy whatever you want, whenever you want, especially with Amazon one click. But getting control of oneself and distinguishing actual needs from just things that we kind of want and being able to control ourselves in that sense is going to be a crucial step. And I think it's a good challenge for us to be able to actually see if we can control ourselves and our actions and actually suppress some of those desires on things that we want to purchase and probably don't need and probably shouldn't even be spending money on. They go on to tell us to budget our expenses, and I have a couple of points that I wanted to share with you on this. If you don't currently do a budget, don't freak out. I didn't do a budget for a long time. I do now. But the first thing that you can do to gain instant control over your finances is just start tracking where your money is going. And if you haven't done anything in a while in terms of a budget or anything along those lines, you can just start by looking at your bank account every day and just make that one of the first things that you do in the morning, and just go onto your bank account app, see how much money you have, how much has come in, and how much has gone out, right? And that's a great place to start. But you shouldn't stay there for very long. I only say that because if you're not doing like anything, like start with that and just get into a habit of doing something in that field. But obviously you don't want to stop with that because that's not going to do anything in and of itself. You want to take it at least a couple steps further than that. But once you're kind of in that habit, the next thing that you want to do is you want to start like really ruthlessly analyzing and tracking. And there's a couple of things that you can use to help you with this. There's one app called EveryDollar, which is a very nice, easy, basic budgeting app. It allows you to connect in your bank accounts so you can actually see the categories that you're spending money in and how much you're spending on different things throughout the month, and that's a great one to use. Another one that's a little bit more advanced, but probably one that most people should have, is QuickBooks. QuickBooks is really nice for keeping all of your transactions organized. You can also reconcile your bank accounts each month. If you don't know what that is, don't worry. It just means that you're getting your accounts to be balanced in a month period. And I personally use both of these apps, and I probably could get by with just QuickBooks, but for some reason I just kind of like to use both and just make sure that I'm not leaving anything on the table and that I'm like extra on top of my game, because I spent so many years without doing a budget and without really tracking much of my finances and just thinking that I could go out there and make money and bring money in. But it's not just about how much you make, it's also like what you do with the money that comes in and how well you're able to, and how disciplined you are on saving, setting things aside, and understanding how much you're spending stuff on. I had so long where I didn't realize how much I was spending on all these different categories and stuff. And then once I kind of got control of my finances, I was able to see, oh wow, I'm spending a lot here, I'm not spending very much here, and all that kind of thing. So I personally use EveryDollar and QuickBooks for managing all the finance for my personal stuff, and then also for my company as well. And when you go through and you start doing all this stuff, it's really actually nice because you're going to be able to eliminate unnecessary expenses and just focus on necessities. So when you're going through and you're looking at things every single day, you're going to say, okay, well, I don't really need that, or I forgot that I had that on auto renewal, right? That's what gets a lot of us. It gets me all the time. And so, but because you're on top of it and you're seeing it every single day, you're going to be able to easily cut waste and basically keep more money, which is great. And the next thing that I want to talk about in this category of controlling expenses is to set everything aside when the money first comes in, right? So if you have money come in, the first thing you want to do is you want to set the different things aside that you need to set aside. So for me, I tithe, so I set 10% aside that I give to my church as a charitable donation or whatever, or a charitable contribution. So I do that one first. I also set aside a percentage of my money that I set aside for taxes, right? Because I pay my own taxes. My taxes are not withheld by my employer. I withhold my own taxes. And then I also set a certain percentage aside just for general saving, right? And I really like doing this first, and I used to never do this, but it's really nice because you'll actually spend a lot less money when you do this because you'll be more sad. So if you have a big amount of money, or just any amount of money come in, and you set everything aside and put them all in the right place right when it first comes in, that big number, or that larger number, looks very small very quickly, right? And so that is going to encourage you to not go out and spend it all because you had some money come in recently, right? And then another thing that was really big in this book was talking about avoiding the slavery of debt. And then I was reading another book today on systems. I forget what it's called, it's like systems thinking or something. And inside of that book, there was a quote, and it said, "Rich people get interest, and poor people pay interest." And I think that this is a trap that a lot of us can find ourselves in, right? But the point of the book is to avoid the slavery of debt. It's good for us to get out of debt and not be paying interest to the banks and to creditors and all that type of stuff, but instead to be taking the money that we have and be earning interest. So we're not paying interest on whatever, we are earning interest with our money that we have. That's kind of the idea behind it and the point from the book. And then lastly, on controlling expenses, is you can always seek financial wisdom from people that are experienced and that you trust, or people that you look up to, right? This kind of goes into the mentorship, which is another little bit of the theme within this book. And so that's the controlling expenses. Now, the next point that I want to talk about from this book is making money work for you. And we talked about this a little bit already, which is paying yourself first, always. So for me, I set the 1/10 aside for my church. And then I also set aside my money for taxes and for saving for myself as well too. And if you want somebody good that you can actually look into, that can help walk you through this process in a lot more detail, I think Dave Ramsey is like a really good one to look into. He has this thing called the baby steps, and it's pretty good. Um, so basically, one of the steps is to get out of debt first. That's like the very first thing that he talks about. So the first step is to have a $1,000 emergency fund. And I won't go too far into the baby steps in this video, but the first step is to have a $1,000 emergency fund, which is just like the bare minimums, right? And so the next step, baby step number 2, is to get out of debt besides your mortgage. So if you have any credit card debt, if you have any student loans, if you have a car note or something like that, what he recommends that you do, and part of his program, is to list all of your debts from smallest to largest, regardless of interest rate, and pay off the smallest one, then the next smallest one, then the smallest one, then the next one, and the next one. You're basically working your way up there. It's called the snowball, basically, right? And once you are able to get out of debt, then the next thing he says to do is to set aside 3 to 6 months of expenses. So if you pay $14,000, or I'll just use simple math, if you pay $10,000 per month just for your typical overhead, then you would want to have about $30,000 to $60,000 in a separate account above and beyond your daily account that you use for your emergency fund, right? And that's like what a fully built out emergency fund looks like per his opinion and what he teaches. Now, once you're out of debt, you have your emergency fund set aside. The next thing that he says, the book that we were reading today talks about setting aside 10% in an interest-bearing account. He says 15%. So you can probably save somewhere in the 10 to 15% range in an interest-bearing account. And so that can be something like mutual funds, right? It can also be something like real estate. And he says in the book to invest, save money wisely. So I'm going to kind of come back to the investing side here in a sec. But what he talks about is avoiding get rich quick. There were several stories and parables in the book where he was kind of illustrating the point of where people were offered these get rich quick schemes, and they almost always never worked out. And this is information and advice that is not just specific to this book, but is specific to people like Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett, which are some of the wealthiest people that have lived in our time and some of the greatest investors. And they themselves invest in things that are things relatively very safe. And so they don't do things that are supposed to get them rich quickly, get them rich today. They're always playing the long game and pushing out, long term, right? And so Charlie Munger, to kind of go back to him, he says step by step we get ahead, but not necessarily in large leaps. Proverbs says little by little. And so the idea here is that we do not need to necessarily be looking for home runs. Are we going to get home runs? Sometimes, but they're probably not going to be as frequent as just going for the base hit, right? And so we want to get, the book is recommending to us that we try to not get caught up in going for get rich quick, but instead just go little by little each day. And the next point is to invest in what we know. So for example, if you understand stocks and stuff like that, fantastic. Like that's probably what you should be investing in. And obviously I'm not like a financial advisor, so everything I'm saying is not financial advice. I'm not telling you to do anything, but if that's what you know, then it's probably a great idea to invest in that because you know it really well. My dad, for example, knows real estate very well, and he purchases rentals and whatnot, and so that's kind of his niche, and what he puts a large portion of his investment portfolio is into real estate. He understands it. He knows how to work on houses, how to fix houses. He knows how to get the tax advantages from all of that kind of stuff. So that's something that he knows a lot about, and that's kind of where he focuses his stuff. Let's take somebody like Alex Hormozi. He doesn't really know. I'm not going to say he doesn't know anything about real estate. He probably does, but what does he know the most about? Well, he says it himself that he knows the most about businesses. And so does he spend a lot of his money on real estate and stocks and all that kind of stuff? He has said publicly that he's done some of that stuff and hasn't done too well on it. But what he knows that he knows the best is businesses, buying businesses and getting them to perform at a higher level. And so that's what he focuses his stuff on, right? And so, you probably want to go with a somewhat more traditional route, stocks, business, real estate, stuff like that when you're investing for the long term. But what do you know a lot about, and what would be a good vehicle for investing that you can be doing? Now, the next point is to let the earnings compound. And I have the compound effect right here, which talks all about this basically. But I did know somebody who had saved a bunch of money into their 401k, and then they cashed it all out, and the money ended up being wasted. They used it on things that were for personal use, and they just didn't use it the right way. They took the money out early. And so when you take money out of a 401k early, there are high penalties, right? So that's one strike right there. And so a lot of the money gets eaten up by those penalties. And then they didn't get the long-term interest of having that money invested, because the longer that it's invested, the more it can grow. The more that it grows, the more that it earns on its interest, and it just continues to grow upward. And so they didn't get that long-term, the results of the compound effect, basically. And they ended up just wasting the money anyway. So it was like 3 strikes basically for a really bad situation. And obviously I know that you're not going to be doing anything like that. And I hope that that's not something that you're wanting to do. But we want to try to do the opposite of that in order to protect our future and to have as much as we can. Now, the next point in this is to make sure that we understand what's going on. And this kind of ties back into the investing in what you know. But if you've ever heard people in professional sports, they say, "Oh, I have a money person that handles all of that." We want to try our best to avoid saying things like that. Like, if we have money that's invested in something, we should understand exactly how much is being invested, how that investment works, and relatively most of the details that are involved with that. Investing is not something that should necessarily, and this is from the book, I promise this isn't coming from me, but investing isn't something that we should be doing passively. It's something that we should be doing actively, and we should understand where our money's even going, right? And understand how those vehicles work, relatively speaking. And honestly, it's your money, so in a lot of cases, if you really care, you'll understand more about how that stuff works than they'll even know, and they're professionals, right? But it's your money. We should probably know exactly what's going on with it. So the next thing is that if we're not where we want to be, or we feel like we're behind, like, I don't know about you, but I'm always feeling like I'm behind in life. And I know a lot of people that are a lot further on in life than I am. And I know a lot of people where I'm a lot further on in life than they are, right? So what does any of that mean? I think if you're feeling like you're behind in life, I think that that's normal, because the people that are ahead of me, they feel like they're behind in life when I talk to them. And the people that are behind me a little bit, and so to speak, they feel like they're behind in life too. So we all kind of feel this feeling of, feeling like we're behind, feeling like we're not good enough, feeling like we're not where we want to be. And I think that this is a slippery slope, and it's something that we need to be aware of, because if you're still alive, if you're still breathing, then there's still time. And we gotta get our head in the game, and we gotta snap out of that mindset. We need to have a positive mind, because if we have a positive mind, then we can actually get out there and create and make something absolutely amazing. But when we're sitting in this negative thought process and feeling like we're behind, we can use that as motivation to keep going and get to where we want to go. But we shouldn't let us keep us in this consistent negative feeling, because it's just nothing good is going to come from that. And so the last point on this, which is making money work for you, the last point on this is to ensure a steady stream of income, right? Because having a strong, steady stream of income is going to be what's going to allow us to invest for the long term. And so consistently be working on ways to make sure we have job security, right? And ways that we can actually earn more money in general, right? Because if we have a higher income, then we can take that higher income and we can invest it. And so that's kind of the next point, actually, which is increasing one's ability to earn. So the first point on this from the book is to develop a strong desire to earn. And I think we live in a society today where some people may kind of say it's negative to want to earn a lot of money. Some people might say it's fine, whatever. But I think having that strong desire to earn more, especially if you're planning to do good with it, is something that's very healthy, right? Maybe not letting materialistic type things own you. That might not be so positive, right? But if you have a strong desire to earn a lot, to be able to take care of your family, make sure that their future is good, and to be able to do things like charitable contributions and whatnot, I think that that is all very admirable, and I admire you for thinking that way if that's a way that you're thinking right now. The next thing is to set definite and tangible goals, right? And this goes back to that Arnold Schwarzenegger speech that he did. It's like a very infamous speech where he says, if you don't have a goal, if you don't know where you're going, then you drift around and you don't go anywhere, right? And that's just how unfortunately, that's just how it is in life. We have to have a definite, tangible goal. If you're making $200,000 right now and you want to make $300,000, right? By when would you like to make that $300,000, right? So what are the goals? What are the tangibles? And what are the steps that we're going to be taking to try and get there? What's the plan that we're going to attempt in order to make that happen, right? And one of the things that we need to be doing is seeking continuous self-improvement. So how can you improve yourself? You can take courses. Maybe school might be right for you depending on what type of work that you're in. You can read books. You can watch videos that are teaching you how to do things and how to do better and whatnot. You can get direct mentorship. But regardless, is that we need to be continuously seeking self-improvements. And one of the things that we can always improve upon are our strengths. It's really good to be able to build upon your strengths, because there are things right now that I'm sure you are phenomenal at that you can get even better at. Doesn't mean we need to neglect our weaknesses, but focusing on our strengths, what makes us stand out from the rest, is a quick way to be able to increase one's ability to earn. The next is to seek wisdom from experienced individuals. If you're in a certain line of work and there's somebody that is in a position that you want to get to, talking with them and seeing, hey, how did you get to this position? What steps should I be taking right now? What books should I be reading? What courses should I be taking? Who should I be connected with, right? Who's a good connection for me? All of those questions are the right questions to be asking if you're trying to accomplish something that has been done by someone else. And if you want to earn more, we've got to earn it, right? If I want to earn more, I've got to get out there and earn it. And so there's a couple ways that we can get out there and earn more. Number one is that we need to be providing more value in general, right? The next thing we could do is we could increase the people that we're bringing value to on a consistent basis, or we could do a combination. We could provide more value and increase the people that we're bringing that value to. These are all things that we can be doing on a consistent basis to set ourselves up to earn more. And this next one, if we're not sure where to go, if you remember this book, it's The 4 Agreements by Don Ruiz. And the fourth agreement in that one is to always give your best. And I love this one because we can always decide to do our best and to always show up. And even if we're going through a hard time or whatever, we can still show up and give our best, always. And I think that this one is so amazing because we never know what doors can open up when we show up and give our best. And so if there's kind of a lot of things that are going through your mind right now and you're like, shoot, I'm not exactly sure where to start. Start by showing up and giving your best, right? That's just the best one to do. And if you're already giving your best, kick it up another notch, because we always can kick it up another notch. But showing up and doing our best, giving our best, always trying our best is a great way to go, and doors will open when we do that. And then lastly, here as we wrap up this video, sometimes we got to think outside of the box, right? If you want to accomplish something, I was listening to it was a video by Dana White, and he's kind of talking about how they brought the UFC back, all that journey. He's constantly talking about this has never been done before. There's nobody that I could go and look at and figure out what my next step was. He's having to figure it out along the way. And sometimes that's just what we got to do in order to get things done, is we got to think outside of the box and we just got to make it happen. Maybe there's nobody that has accomplished what we're trying to accomplish. We got to just figure it out and we got to keep moving, and doors are going to open along the way. And lastly, a fixed mindset can kill our future. So, and I've talked to a lot of people, and I have kind of heard this kind of like fixed mindset that's out there, and fixed meaning maybe a closed mindset, and it's someone that's thinking, I can't do this because of X, Y, and Z. Yes, we can. We can always make something happen. Sometimes we got to think outside of the box. But if we're coming into a situation with a closed mindset where we're going to say, hey, I can't do this, then we're right. If we're saying we can't do this, then we can't. But if we say that we can do it, and maybe I don't know exactly how, but I'm going to get out there and give it my best, then we absolutely can figure out how to make it happen. Guys, thanks so much for watching this video. I really enjoyed reading this book. I recommend it to you. It's called The Richest Man in Babylon by George Clason, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video.